Hey, Eric here from Night Ranger, and you're watching CMS TV.
It is Chris Aiken Presents, and I, of course, am Chris Aiken. And today on the show, we are talking about one of my earliest favorite bands of all time, and a story that our guest will not know, but his singer, Jack Blades, probably will remember the very first interview I ever did when I was in high school radio at the bright old age of 15 was with Jack Blades of Night Ranger in 1985, long time ago. And what stands out about it for him would be that it was at 7:30 in the morning, which I know in Rockstar time that doesn't exist. We are not here to talk about that necessarily. We are talking about a great new Best of Night Ranger release coming out on August the 28th. It is some stuff that everybody knows, some stuff that everybody should know, but has not gravitated to, I guess, to this point. But here to talk all about it is the keyboardist of the band, Mr. Eric Levy. Eric, how are you, man?
Oh man, I'm doing great. So Jack Blades, 7:30 in the morning. Your
Yes,
interview.
Man, it was. I'll
man.
tell you the backstory real quick. I
Fortunately,
was in
I'm the morning person. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Well, I was in high school radio, and I wanted to be the best at high school radio. I didn't want to just play records. And the program director, was the teacher, was like, "Hey, if you can make something happen, make it happen." And I pulled every phone number and that I could find back, because that was even before email, and I spent my afternoons calling the local promoter, and they led me to the national promoter. And then I was talking to the record label, and, so you're 15, huh? They didn't even want to hear it. And then it happened, and it was crazy. 7:30 in the morning, live radio with Jack Blades as a 15-year-old kid. It was really amazing.
That's a brilliant story, dude. That's
so fun.
You earned that one. Wow. That's fantastic.
Right on, man. Well, dude, let's talk about what we're here to talk about. The Best of Night Ranger. I'm going to tell you up front, I am generally not a fan of these kind of records, and I'll tell you why. I have a thing about anytime a band does a second edition of a greatest hits, it's usually followed with for record company consideration or to get out of a deal and to move forward. And I mean, I'm sure you're aware of it too. There's a zillion of those latest and greatests from 15 years ago, and not many of them were very good. I'm going to withdraw all of that for you guys for one distinct reason. I think that the music that you guys have been creating pretty much since you joined the band, I believe, somewhere in California time.
Yeah, that's right.
Has been as strong as the vaunted first four of the band. And I'm not just saying that because you're in the band. I'm a longtime fan of the band. I really like what you guys are doing. I felt like those middle records, the Feeding Off the Mojo and Seven and whatnot, were kind of, well, we got to put something out so we can go out type of records. Again, that's my opinion. I feel like these are like you guys have got the creative juice going, and I don't know if it was you coming into the band or they were just recharged. But let's start there, man, because most of this greatest hits is built from the second half of your career. So talk a little bit about that, and talk about how the songs were chosen, and talk about being part of this band at a time when, you as a musician have to compete against the heyday of your own band.
Oh, that's great stuff there. And thank you for the kind words. Yeah, my first album with the band was Somewhere in California, and I was actually in the studio with them before I even knew if I was in the band or not. I was like, you guys, this is great. I'd love to be in the band. And they're like, yeah, just come to the studio every day and, we'll take it from there. So, but they told me right off the top of it, because I had gone out, when Jack Blades was the one who first called me about the keyboard chair opening up. So that night I went on iTunes. Back in the day, I had my old iPod. This is 2010.
Sure.
And I downloaded the original Night Ranger's greatest hits, and I downloaded what at the time was their most recent album, which was Hole in the Wall, or I'm sorry,
Hole in the Sun.
Hole in the Sun. My bad. And so, but as soon as I started talking to them, they were basically like, yeah, Hole in the Sun. We're that was where we were at, but at this moment, we're actually interested in getting back to kind of our roots and getting back to like big melodic rock and going for more of those original keyboard sounds too. And for me, that was like the best news I possibly could have heard, because I was far more interested in the organ and the analog synthesizers. Sure. And the piano. It's the really early keyboard sounds, and Alan Fitzgerald was an absolutely beautiful, brilliant sound designer. Mm-hmm. So as far as like competing with the past for Jack, Brad, and Kelly, maybe that's something that they have. For me, it's I got this incredible opportunity to jump on board, right as the band was going through this renaissance, and to get to be a part of that and get to be along for the ride. And get to be a part of the creativity and be with them in the studio, which is amazing. I'm happy to be here along for it. As for your concerns about greatest hits albums, I totally get that. I get why there's a lot of cynical reasons in the music business why things like this can happen.
Sure.
But not only do we have the handful of the remixed and remastered songs from the heyday, but most of the album is actually reflective of my time since I've been here, and I'm actually playing keyboards on the majority of these songs. Plus, it's some things that people haven't gotten a chance to hear yet. We had a really fun Christmas song that we recorded live.
Right.
Recorded another tune, Wasted Time, over at Sweetwater. They have an amazing facility over there. So it's being billed as a best of greatest hits, but it's a lot of things, including that.
Hey metalheads, tired of waiting for new episodes? Crave the real raw classic metal show? For just $4.99 a month, you can become a CMS VIP. You get every episode a full week early, completely uncensored, and 100% commercial free. It's the only place to interact directly with the show, plus you score the Fast Pass, so your song requests get bumped straight to the head of the line on every live version. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe right now at classicmetalshow.locals.com and become a CMS VIP today.
Sure. Let me ask you this, Eric. For you personally, you mentioned that you were given a piece of the creative process, and I'm imagining that Joel Hoekstra did when he was in there, and of course Carrie now. But when you're the new guy, and even at 16 years or whatever it's been, you're still kind of the new guy. I'll
always be the new guy.
You and Carrie are going to be the new guys pretty much, unless somebody else comes in after. That's the only way that changes. But when you come into a band like this that did have significant success, and look, like I said, I was a teenager when Night Ranger was hitting. They were as big as anybody was at that 82 to 85. They were in the same world, the same discussions as like Motley Crue or Rat at the top of that chain, or Bon Jovi. To come into that as a guy that wasn't there, and then to be given creative ability to the new music, how intimidating was that for you to, I know you know how to make music, but now you're making music against an iconic set of songs. Is that intimidating, or is it easy to just push it off and just say, well, I got to do my thing?
Interesting. I wouldn't say it was intimidating per se. I wouldn't say I was really trying to do my thing. I would definitely say it was an interesting challenge. For me, a lot of my challenge in the studio for that first album was really just, okay, we really want to get back to that original Night Ranger sound. So I'm not going to come in here and be like, oh, I'm feeling this chord today. Let's find a way to put, it's like I'm coming in there like, okay, what kind of synth part could work for this, or what's some ear candy that Alan Fitzgerald might have put into one of his creative sound designs, which were his analog synth creations were as creative, if not more so, than anything that was happening in rock and roll at the time. Those and so it's I was really trying to be more of a distiller, like I've come from a very musically eclectic background. And I had spent 10 years in a jam band before that, a jazz fusion jam band. So I was more than anything just trying to be careful about, like, okay, no extensions here above a seventh, and like what are really some of these voicing. Ed quickly started figuring out, like, okay, these guys smiled at that one, they like the sus too, cool. I'll throw that one in. So a lot of it was that kind of evaluation. But I got to say too, once I started playing the shows themselves after that initial recording process, that also really refined my way of thinking, because I had come from more of where my primary focus was, creative improvisation, and let's get up here and create something new. And it's like, walking up on stage with Night Ranger, it's like, that's not what this is supposed to be about. And it's not that it's wrong for us to be creative, and it's not that it's wrong for us to write new material, and hopefully people enjoy that. But it's like, when somebody's coming to that show and they're standing in the crowd, there's a good chance that song comes on that they remember, and they'll start singing the words, and they don't even remember why they remember the words, but somehow they just do. And then they look over at people around them who they've never met, and they see that they're in this environment where everybody has this shared, love of this song and knows the lyrics. And I realized very quickly, okay, that the main goal is how do we really encapsulate that feeling and make sure that everybody who comes to the show is able to walk away feeling like they got that sense of community, with music that, is important to them.
Right. Well, that leads to another question, though. To make an album, while it's easier today than it was back then, it's still difficult. It's difficult to come up with 10 to 15 strong ideas and then have a band, a collection of people all agree on how to form it together. In the old days, the payoff was 10 million people are going to see it. 10 million people are going to hear it. Today, seems like a lot of times bands like a Night Ranger will put out a record, a great record, and people hear it for about a week and they'll be like, this is fantastic. And then it's forgotten until the tour. And then you play one song on the tour and everybody's like, oh, I don't remember that one. Or they don't react to it the way in the old days. I remember seeing the Seven Wishes tour, and they were playing new stuff, and I was just like, oh man, more of the same. And I went out literally the next day and bought the record. I don't think it's that way anymore today. I don't even think people go like on their phone and bookmark a Spotify playlist of, if they heard something and the band played on, if they heard something from that, I don't think that they would automatically pick up their phone and write it down or go listen to it. They might tomorrow still go back to the first greatest hits and listen to 4 a.m, or, when you close your eyes.
What's likely to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. For you being in the creative side and knowing that you guys have done really strong work these last 10, 15 years, is that frustrating that people don't gravitate to it the way they did? Because it's really the same people.
I feel like it's really a matter of perspective and framing, and what's your definition of success. So we're in 2026. We're not going back to 1982.
Sure.
As far as everybody's siloed now, and everybody has a world of music at their fingertips, and like new AI songs that most people can't distinguish between a real artist are being pumped out even faster. Mm-hmm. It's all this being pumped out to Spotify day after day after day. And it's not only new music, it's also the entire catalog of everything ever recorded. And everybody's got their own individual algorithm feeding them what the algorithm thinks that they're going to individually like. Back in the early '80s, the music that you listened to, it defined you in a far greater way. What you listened to, what movies you were into, the way you dressed, kind of would identify you as belonging to, it's a certain group. And not that, I was more independent and not into that so much, but it really was a shared culture and a shared, we had this, you could go to school. I could go to school on Monday, and I would know that like everybody would be talking about what happened on Saturday Night Live.
Sure.
Like everybody watched it. That kind of thing doesn't happen nowadays. So it's like, should I feel frustrated about the idea that if I were born 30 years earlier, that things would have been different, or is it enough for me to know that, hey, if there's like a few people out there who this music touched, I can meet, the only the only composition on here, and really the only song that I've brought to Night Rangers is entitled "Only for You Only," and I remember thinking, oh, I don't even know if anybody knows this song. We don't perform it, and then we were doing a meet and greet once, and a couple came up and said, "This is our song. We love this song." And I was like, wow, it's so meaningful. It's it's like if music that I've played on or written has an impact like that on one person or two people, is that enough for me? Does that define success for me?
Sure. Do you find that more people than you expect or less know these records from 2010 on?
Well, generally, when we're at a show, we're in the bubble of people who are wearing Night Ranger T-shirts,
right?
Drove for who knows how many hours and have seen how many shows this year, and certainly not everybody who's coming to a Night Ranger show is in that position, but a lot of times, the people who are more involved in the Fabs in Motion community, those are the people who are like, they're going to be up on the new material and have opinions about it.
Right on. Let me ask you this, just a general question. A really good friend of mine is Eric Ferentinos, who plays guitar for Stephen Pearcy, and he tells me all the time that people come up to him and think that he's, even though he's bald with a mohawk, they'll ask him if he's Warren DeMartini, or they'll associate him with Original Rat. Do you get that? Because I don't take this the wrong way, but you kind of look like Fitz, sort of.
That's a big reason why they hired me. I'm not afraid to admit that. That's a lot of reason why they were like, what about this guy who looks like our original guy? Yeah, that was certainly a part of it. So,
do people ever mistake you? Do they come up and say, "Here, sign"? Whatever, you can still rock it. The first Dawn Patrol. Do they have you sign Dawn Patrol on Fitz's picture?
Yeah. I think Jack might have actually made me do that once. We're standing signing it, and Jack's like, just sign over Fitz. But I think it's more in the early days, which also surprised me because I was in my mid-30s when I joined the band. So sure. I was surprised at the beginning of how many people called me Fitz and thought I was Fitz. I think over the years, maybe word has spread, and Jack, to his credit, really is amazing at almost every show. If we're playing more than 45 minutes, he's gonna find a spot to like tell the crowd, my name and who I am, and he doesn't have to do that. It's about it's about the show and it's about the rock and roll, but it's. As of recent years, I think combination of factors. I don't get so confused with Alan anymore.
Sure. Nice. Well, man, obviously Night Ranger does not seem to be slowing down a little bit. Seems like you guys stay busy. You guys are road dogs. I know I've seen you personally in Night Ranger, I think 3 times now. Oh,
killer, dude.
The only tour I did not catch was the COVID, like right after COVID time, or since then, but I saw the other 3, and it's always still to give to throw back to the other three guys for a minute, the original three,
Absolutely.
they've got the same power and the same energy that they did in 1982 and 3.
Oh, hell yeah.
It's really amazing that they have, I mean, you see the same thing I do, probably more because you play shows with a lot of these guys that have slowed down or have diminished skills or whatever. And I don't want you to name them, but are you surprised that the guys in your band are still 1,000 miles an hour?
Oh, surprised? No, just because I know them.
Right.
I've known them for long enough where I would be surprised if they one day were like, yeah, whatever, I'm just going to sit around and watch TV for the next few months. It's like I would be surprised by that. And I'll tell you what, these guys are making me younger. I swear. Like these guys are making me younger. And there have been nights when it's like, we walk out on stage and it's 90 something degrees plus tons of humidity. And I'm like, I don't know if I feel like moving that much today, right. Like it's, ooh, okay. And then I'll look over at Jack, and here's Jack just like, jumping off risers like it's nothing. And I'm like, well, if he's doing it, how am I just going to stand here and be like, I'm hot, come on. If he's doing it, I'm doing it. I swear these guys are keeping me younger.
Right on, man. Well, where are we at with Night Ranger? You guys kind of in between records right now? I mean, it's been, 5 years since we've had one? 4 or 5 years.
It's the last record was such an oddball. COVID was such an oddball.
Yeah.
And so we all recorded from our individual studios.
Okay.
And there were positives, but there were a lot of negatives. Like positive wise, it was like, I'm used to just throwing a keyboard in the car and like driving over to Brad's place, or driving over to Jack's when he lived by me, and like, okay, cool. We'll record something. Everybody happy. Okay, great. We got it. The advantage of doing it in COVID was that I had access to, all my gear, all my equipment. So I was able to do things sound design wise, really kind of dig into stuff in a way that I hadn't on previous albums. And a lot of that too was encouragement from the band. Kelly in particular has always talked to me about Alan Fitzgerald's sound design and how much he would put into, just simple little parts, he really focused on the tones. So I had an opportunity to do that, and that was good. Had an opportunity to, really determine parts, come up with stuff myself, and then just submit it. But I I remember talking to our mixing engineer, Anthony Fox, the day before he started mixing that album, and he was laughing on the phone to me, and he said, you have no idea what anybody else played in their overdubs, and they have no idea what you played in your overdubs. And now, like, Jack and I are going to sit down for the next 2 weeks and see if, we can find something coherent between everybody that sounds like everybody was listening to each other. So that's kind of the opposite of, the way the band started out, which is like,
sure.
Let's all get in a room together and work up this song until we got it tight. Okay, cool. Now we'll hit the red button. Now we'll record. It's kind of the opposite of that. So I would love to see an opportunity for us to all like get back into a room and get back to that if and when the time is right. And, with everybody's energy and everybody's health, I hope that day will come.
Right on, man. Well, let me ask you one last one here before we wrap it up. I'm going to ask you to put your fan hat on more than your in the band hat on.
Yeah, you got it.
I always thought personally that Night Ranger was one of the bands that really didn't get the attention they should have. I honestly, in my opinion, they were the 80s version of the Eagles. They had the hits, they had the multiple vocals, they had the great harmonies, they had the right amount of guitars to keys to, like, they had all the pieces like the Eagles. And I don't know if it was the smaller label that they were on or what it was, but they got like so close to making the jump, and then they didn't make the jump. And I mean, all the pieces, look, I'm such a fan. I remember going to see The Secret of My Success because they had a song on it. And
I still love that.
And I think Doc Hollywood had a song on it too. And I saw that. I mean, I was a fan, and I always thought that they should have been when you're talking about the 80s now, it should be Night Ranger and Rat and Motley and, you know, those types of bands, maybe Billy Squire, you know. Where do you stand as somebody that A, sees all these bands come through because you play with a lot of them, and B, just as a fan, do you think they got the right amount of attention? That should have been bigger? What do you think?
Oh, loaded question and great question. That's really thought provoking. I feel like so okay, I'll give you my perspective first
Sure.
from being in the band since 2011. Is that, you know, when I first joined the band, it definitely kind of felt like, you know, entering the, it was my first entry into playing in a classic rock band. So it appeared to me like, okay, you know, like bands are, you know, kind of pre-slotted in a way reflective of the success that they, you know, how many hit songs they had, how many, you know, and of course a lot of it is timing. I'll get to that. I'll get back to that. But I feel like I was right about that, but I wasn't completely right about that, because in the last 15 years, I've been able to watch us grow and
Mm-hmm.
build and go from, you know, go to bigger numbers than we had, bigger attendance than we had when I first joined, going to a better booking agency than we were with. So getting amazing people on our crew, amazing people on our team, adding lights. We didn't have a lighting director when I joined back in 2011. It's, you know, such an amazingly key part of the show. Steve Koken over there doing that for us. So it's, in a way, it's like, okay, yeah, it's predetermined by what they did in the 80s, but in a way it's not completely, because it's like if we just come out and rock every night, you know, it means that there is still potential, you know, not only continuing on, but growth,
Mm-hmm.
growth for us. So, okay, that's not really the question you asked, but
I was going to get you for dodging me, but go ahead.
should Night Ranger have gotten more attention? You know, I was in a weird spot where my mom was really concerned in the 80s with the whole satanic panic thing, and wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
listen to anything but, you know, instrumental jazz or Christian rock.
Sure.
So it wasn't until we got cable TV in 1987 that I was able to actually watch MTV and for the first time actually see Night Ranger. So it's my first exposure to Night Ranger was Secret of My Success, and I love the movie. I love the
Sure.
video. I thought they were great. You know, and you know, but that was basically the end of their run. And I wonder if part of it is just the simple timing of it, where it's, you know, they were like the, you know, the front runners of the early MTV and really helped the early MTV get off the ground. But it's like, you know, by the time cable was getting more widespread into more homes by the later 80s, then, you know, other bands had kind of fallen into favor, and maybe that was, yeah, kind of like a heart of the Gen X. But I don't know. I might
Well,
not be right about that. I just saw something the other day where they were talking about like how culturally 1984 was the greatest year in history,
right.
and made a lot of great points about that too. And Night Ranger was, you know, had one of the massive touchstones of 1984 with Sister Christian.
Sure.
So all that being said, I know I still haven't answered your question, but it's hard to tell how these things go. You know, they made choices too, as far as working with different producers,
Mhm. Labels, everything. Yeah.
yeah. So it's, you know, I know back in the day they were writing the best they could, they were performing the best they could, they were playing the best they could, and you know, it's all a matter of framing, because yeah, you know, we're not playing as big as spots as some bands, but we're playing bigger spots than 99 point
Sure.
whatever percent of other bands. And we'll have bands on festivals with us that had like, you know, some, you know, one hit song that I totally remember. And I'm like, hell yeah, you guys, you know,
Right.
killer to be playing music with you. Love that song. and at the same time, it's like they're just happy to get, an afternoon slot at a festival. So I really feel like it's framing. I'm able to do this for a living. I'm having a great time. The guys are unbelievable. It really does feel like a family. It doesn't have the kind of dysfunction that I think a lot of other rock bands are susceptible to. It's like people actually get along and like each other, and there's actual camaraderie, and so I'm blessed to be here. I'm having a great time. I don't at all feel like we're getting the short end of any sticks.
Right on, man. Well, you're certainly not getting the short end of the listening stick here on August the 28th, because that is when everybody's going to be listening to the Best of Night Ranger. Comes out then. Yes, you can stream it, people, if you have to, but go buy something, for God's sakes. Go buy a vinyl, buy a shirt, buy a hat, buy something to support the band. Where's the best place for us to send everybody, Eric? Just the website or Amazon or where?
Yeah, we got www.nightranger.com.
Okay.
Our website, and then if you're on the Facebooks, we have a very active fan page called Fans in Motion, kind of a riff off the Man in Motion album.
Motion, right?
Fans in Motion. So it's even if you just show up to one of our shows, you'll probably see some random person wearing a Fans in Motion shirt with looks like kind of the Night Ranger logo. That's what it is. So yeah, if you're on Facebook, please feel free, go over there. It's actually a great community of people. If you're mean spirited, it's not for you. If you're into music and you're into, it's melodic rock and 80s rock and Night Ranger in particular, please check it out. Right
on. Well, one more time, Best of Night Ranger, August the 28th is the date. Of course, the band is Night Ranger. And Eric, this has been fun. Thanks for joining me here on Chris Aiken Presents.
Oh, man, Chris, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure.
Looking for your daily dose of classic metal? Follow the Classic Metal Show on X at x.com/cmsrocks. Get the latest classic metal news, honest opinions, exclusive clips, and full episodes of the Classic Metal Show. Want to interact with the show? This is the place to do it. X is the one mainstream social media platform we actively focus on, making it the best way to connect directly with us. Follow now at x.com/cmsrocks and join the conversation.